Sky News host Trevor Phillips didn't hold back during a fiery exchange with Chancellor Rachel Reeves, demanding answers on the Labour government's humiliating U-turn over the grooming gang inquiry. Visibly frustrated, Phillips challenged Reeves over how the government had spent months dismissing, smearing and mocking those who were calling for a national inquiry into the mass abuse scandal. Those concerns, now proven valid, had been brushed off as misinformation or smeared as coming from the far right. The implication was clear. Thousands of victims had waited far too long for justice, while politicians buried their heads in the sand. Campaigners, many of them survivors, whistleblowers, or local residents, were insulted, ridiculed, and told they were stoking division. And now, after being cornered by public pressure, political backlash, and a damning audit from Baroness Casey, the very same government has been forced to admit the truth. These people were telling the truth all along. Reeves tried to pivot, offering carefully chosen words about the importance of protecting victims and doing the right thing going forward. But the damage was already done, because for years, Labour and much of the political establishment prioritised not offending communities over protecting children. And when ordinary people dared to speak up, they were labelled extremists. Now, with a national statutory inquiry finally being announced, the political class is trying to rewrite history. But as Phillips made clear, those who were ignored and insulted deserve more than a quiet reversal. They deserve an apology, and they deserve justice, fast. Let's have a watch of this. But first, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel for more. Have a watch.
When it's published, will there be some sort of apology to all of those who were criticised by ministers as talking total nonsense, I'm quoting here, and misinformation? And those who were more or less accused of racism for raising this issue?
The most important thing is getting justice.
Well, no, this is what I've asked you is the most important thing.
Well, no, Trevor.
For many people who were criticised in that way.
Trevor, what is the most important thing
here?
Of
course, it's the position of the victims. I understand that.
It is the victims, and it's not people's hurt feelings about how they've been spoken about. The most important here is the victims of these evil crimes.
But the reason it matters is because those people who raise this issue on behalf of victims who cannot often speak for themselves were accused by government ministers of, quote, total nonsense, misinformation and racism. So actually, surely that's important as well.
I think the most important thing is the victims themselves. And we have been busy as a government this last year implementing the 200 or so recommendations of the previous inquiry. Convictions are now at a record high. The Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, is always focused, whether it's on this or other issues, on what practical things can be done to make sure that justice is always delivered.
But you see, this has to be dealt with properly to make sure this doesn't happen in future. Presumably there are going to be some lessons learned here about the way ministers respond to these issues.
Well, the Prime Minister, when he was Director of Prosecutions, he brought the first convictions in Rochdale. Louise Casey, when she did her review in Rotherham, uncovered what was going on there. So I think the Prime Minister's got a good track record in this area. The first convictions, he, unlike the previous government, is implementing the recommendations of the J review. And now we will go further and have alongside these local inquiries and national inquiries. So we do learn lessons for the victims.
What are your thoughts on this? Let me know in the comments. In other news, Nigel Farage has welcomed the news that Sir Keir Starmer has ordered a national statutory inquiry into Britain's grooming gang scandal. The Reform UK leader, who made launching a national probe a manifesto commitment in April, said the Prime Minister's move was a welcome U-turn in a fiery statement on Saturday afternoon. But Farage also laid out a warning to Labour as it gears up to fully investigate the grooming gangs. He said the government's decision to launch a national inquiry into the grooming gang scandal is a welcome U-turn. A full statutory inquiry done correctly will expose the multiple failings of the British establishment. I repeat the words done correctly. This cannot be a whitewash. It's time for victims to receive the justice they deserve and for perpetrators to face the full force of the law. Farage's deputy leader Richard Tice branded the move a massive Starmer U-turn due to a fear of Reform UK. Once again, Labour copying Reform policy, he said. And Sarah Pochin, a former magistrate and Reform's newest MP, said, Sir Keir Starmer must immediately publish a clear and detailed timetable for this inquiry. Victims and communities have waited long enough. This cannot be kicked into the long grass. We need answers, and soon. Those in authority who enabled these crimes must be held to account. Reform UK will not let this be swept under the carpet. Paul Wall, the Labour MP for Rochdale, said, "I'm pleased the Prime Minister has ordered a national inquiry into these rape gangs. What matters most of all is getting justice for the victims of these disgusting crimes, which in Rochdale were committed by men of predominantly Pakistani heritage. Justice means criminal prosecutions and long sentences, but it also means holding to account anyone who could have prevented their abuse, which is why statutory inquiries are needed locally and nationally. In Rochdale, we know all too well the delays to justice that survivors have suffered. Being able to compel witnesses to give evidence is vital in getting to the truth. These inquiries should follow the evidence wherever it leads them. No political party, no council, no police officer, no social worker, no racial group should be exempt from the need to find the facts." And former Reform MP Rupert Lowe, who has raised more than £600,000 through a crowdfunding drive for an inquiry, said the Prime Minister had done the right thing through the move. "This is a huge victory for the tens of thousands of you who have supported our cause, but will not in itself guarantee justice," he said. Because whether it's local councils who have simply failed to collect data on gang-based sexual exploitation, victims who have been denied the compensation and support they deserve, or public officials with direct involvement in these crimes, the rot is deeply embedded. But Shadow Justice Secretary Robert Jenrick spat. First, Starmer described calls for a national inquiry as a far-right bandwagon. Then he dismissively batted away victims' appeals week after week, month after month. Now he's been dragged, kicking and screaming to make the right decision. So finally, the victims have what they need. But this man is not the leader our country needs. Now justice for the victims must be quick. And all those responsible for the grooming gang scandal finally held responsible. The announcement of a national statutory inquiry marks a major shift in the political response to Britain's grooming gang scandal, one that has been welcomed by victims, campaigners, and political rivals alike. But as support for the move grows, so too does the pressure on the government to ensure the process is thorough, transparent, and free from political interference. For many, this is not just about uncovering the truth. It's about finally delivering justice and accountability after years of silence, denial, and institutional failure. What are your thoughts on what we discussed in today's video? Let me know down in the comments section below. If you've not yet already, make sure you do drop a like on this video and subscribe to the channel for more British content. Thank you, take care, goodbye.